After a flurry of releases in 2021 and 2022, things have been a little bit quieter lately for ThoughtSpace Athletics. Their first 13 discs are full of high highs, but a few lows as well. So where do their latest releases like the Crux, Numa, and Nuance fall? Let's find out, because these are our first impressions. Hey everyone, it's Greg from Six Sided Discs, and I want to talk about ThoughtSpace Athletics. There's no question that everyone loves their stamps. They are some of the best in the game, but do good stamps translate to good sales? Well, not always. As hopefully most of you know, we were an online disc golf store before we were a YouTube channel. And we've been selling ThoughtSpace since we launched in September of 2020. But not every release has been a success. While their first two molds, the Mantra and Pathfinder, were so popular we couldn't keep them in stock, others like the Muse and Construct sat on our shelves for months, while we also had the same 5 Praxis in stock for like 2 years. Now, I'm sure there's plenty of nuance to why some discs sell well and others don't, but the crux of the situation is that some discs make you feel something and some discs don't. Some of these really get in touch with your Numa. Okay, I don't think cramming all the names into the script is working. Like, does anyone know what Numa means? Numa is a noun commonly used in philosophy, which refers to the vital spirit, soul, or creative force of a person. All right, let's take a step back from the dictionary for a moment. I love to try and find like deeper meaning and connections with the names of discs and why they're named that way, but let's just look at the disc itself. This is the Numa. Approved by the PDGA in June of 2023, it's rated at 2300, and it was designed in collaboration with Canadian distance machine Thomas Gilbert. Now, we'll find out how the Numa flies in just a moment, but before we do, I want to talk about something else interesting about it: the plastic. While it says nerve plastic, it is most definitely not the same nerve plastic used for the Temple or the Muse in the past. Those iterations of nerve plastic are grippy and tacky, soft, sort of mid-grade plastics that remind me a lot of R Pro from Innova, or maybe even like an Electron Soft from MVP. Now, while those are a grippy, tacky, and soft mid-grade plastic, this Numa is still soft, but it's lost all the grip from those previous nerve runs and is instead smooth and slick to the touch. It's so different, I'm struggling to think of a plastic that I would directly compare this to. So while I try to think of a good comparison, let's learn more about the Numa, a disc that ThoughtSpace calls a straight, beginner-friendly putter with excellent control and accuracy. Off the tee, the Numa is pretty darn close to the flight numbers. Thrown flat, it gets on a slight anhyzer angle, and it just stays there. On the slightest of hyzers, there was little change to its flight. Once the Numa starts turning, it holds that slight turn until it finds the ground. Not bad, but to help us understand the Numa more, we're going to compare it to another straight putter that actually has the exact same flight numbers, the Discmania P1X. The P1X was reintroduced to the Discmania lineup just a couple months ago in September of 2024. Here in Flex 2 D-Line plastic, which is a medium stiffness base blend, it feels great and has a remarkably similar shape to the Numa, but it doesn't quite fly the same. The P1X was also pretty straight, but definitely handled my power because it managed to actually fade on every throw. Ultimately, we have 2 straight putters here that work for different players. If you're a newer player with not a lot of power, you're going to love the flight of the Numa. But if you're more experienced and you've got some oomph to your throw, stick with the P1X. Have you thrown the Numa or P1X? Get in the comments down below and let us know how they fly for you. Let's bump up in speed though and check out ThoughtSpace's new overstable midrange, the Crux. The Crux is rated at 5402 and fills an important slot in the ThoughtSpace lineup. Here in their Aura plastic, which is comparable to MVP's Neutron, it has an interesting profile featuring a big bead on the rim. It feels a bit deep and chunky in the hand, and therefore it felt appropriate to compare it to a deep, chunky-ish mid-range that's in a new plastic, the Axiom Pyro. But not just any pyro, Eagle McMahon's Halloween Fission Pyro. Both of these discs are nearly max weight, 176 and 177 grams respectively, and we're expecting both to have a moderate amount of overstability. On hyzer, the Crux has exactly what you want from an overstable midrange. No flip up, no turn, and plenty of fade. On a similar angle, the Pyro shows a similar amount of stability, once again showing no signs of turning. On Anhyzer, I was able to get the Crux to turn over, but only briefly, before it fought out and faded back, once again demonstrating excellent overstability. Caleb put the Pyro out flat with some power and did get it to drift briefly before that fade kicked in, perhaps showing a little bit less overstability than this Aura Crux. Overall, I have to say I'm pretty impressed with the Crux, which puts me in a difficult position because I'm not totally satisfied with the more overstable midrange slot in my bag. I've been waffling a bit lately between the Archive, which won me over in our Flight Numbers Don't Matter overstable midrange test, but between a couple new discs that I've tried recently like the Crux, this Fission Pyro, and even Castoplast's new Nord, I'm a bit conflicted about what I want to bag here in the long term. But I'm curious, have any of you thrown these mid-ranges? And if so, what do you think of them? Leave a comment down below. Finally, let's take a look at the Nuance. And firstly, I have to say I love the name of Nuance for a slightly understable fairway driver. Nuance perfectly describes the skill required to throw a disc like this well, and the touchiness of the flight. Anyways, great marketing aside, the Nuance is rated at 7.5, -2.1, and with those numbers is up against some stiff competition in the market, like the Innova Leopard 3, or a disc that we've tested in the recent past, the Luft Titanium. Before we get to the actual comparisons though, let's look a little more at this Nuance. Here today we have it in Ethos Plastic, which is ThoughtSpace's version of MVP's Proton. The Nuance of course has another incredible stamp design, but importantly, a nice wing design as well. It fits great in the hand, and you can see how smooth aerodynamics should encourage high-speed turn, but that blunt nose might give it a little bit of late fade. So let's see if the flight numbers and shape match up to the flight. From hyzer, in a steady tailwind, the Nuance quickly flips over, turns, and holds that turn. Though I would say this tailwind may have prevented it from getting much more distance. On a similar hyzer angle, but with more height, Caleb was able to get the Nuance to show us that -2 turn, at least. But also that one fade we were looking for, pushing forward to finish out around 350 feet. For my arm speed though, keep in mind I'm 37 and not getting any younger, the Nuance had a surprising amount of overstability. And even though I threw this a bit nose up, I only got a tiny bit of turn. On the flip side, I was able to get the Luft Discs Titanium to get lots of turn on multiple occasions. Similarly, Caleb got much more effortless turn from the Titanium. Overall, I think the Nuance has a little more nuance to it than we may have originally thought. I don't think I'd recommend it as a beginner-friendly understable driver because I'm not sure it would actually be understable for a beginner. But faster arm speeds are definitely going to get some turn out of the Nuance. While ThoughtSpace Athletics stamps might convince you to bag their discs, it is ultimately the flight of the disc that will determine whether you keep that disc in your bag. And for these three, I think the flights are looking pretty good. What do you want to see next from ThoughtSpace Athletics? Leave a comment down below. And also comment below what discs or brands you want to see next in our first impression series. For Six Sided Discs, I'm Greg. We'll see you in the next one. The Nuance is rated at 7.5, -2.1, and with those numbers, it's up against some stiff not bad, but to help us understand. So while I try and think of a good comparison, let's talk about a disc that ThoughtSpace calls a beginner-friendly straight shooter.
Look at this wind. It just dies.
Yep. Phew. Yeah, it should do that for you. That's nice. Okay. If you like this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, or supporting us on Patreon. Your support makes this content possible.